Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Hope you're all doing really well. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider liking the content and subscribing to the channel. And if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. Let's look at the Manly-Warringah Seagulls 2023 draw. Section 1 of their campaign starts at home, and as a matter of fact, their first 3 weeks you can make a case that they do not leave Four Pines Park. Their round 1 fixture is against the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, Saturday 3 p.m. at Four Pines Park. That's going to be a fascinating contest. Don't know if Tom Trbojevic is going to partake in round 1, let alone round 3, but it will be fascinating nonetheless. We've also got the brand new recruits for the Bulldogs. The last time that these two sides met at Four Pines Park, it did go down to the wire, and the Seagulls got over the Bulldogs just thanks to the boot of Daly Cherry Evans. So that's not an easy start. That's a tricky start for Manly Seagulls, but they can put everything they can into that round 1 performance and then go on a bye. So round 2 is their first bye of 2023, followed by, in round number 3, they host the Parramatta Eels on a Thursday night. The Parramatta Eels beat Manly at Brookvale last year, but beforehand, the Seagulls held off the top of the dome a pretty nice record over the Eels at Fortress Brookvale, shifting over to round number 4, and this is their first technically away trip for the season. They travel to Sydney Olympic Park, Accor Stadium, in round number 4 against the South Sydney Rabbitohs, Saturday 7:30 p.m. In round number 5, they travel out to Mudgee, and this would be about the fourth time that they've held a game out or played out at Mudgee. But the Manly-Warringah Seagulls are taking a home game to be played on Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock, Queensland time that is, and they're going to take on the Newcastle Knights out at Glen Willow Oval out there in Mudgee. So their first section for 2023, they have a bye inside that first 5 rounds. They have three home games, one of them being travelled out to Mudgee, and they travel to Accor Stadium as their first and only away game inside that first section. Not bad. The strength of opposition, you've got the Eels and Souths in there. Bulldogs, I think they can match it with them. Newcastle, definitely. I think they'd be looking to go at least 2-2 inside that first section. Section number 2 of their 2023 campaign begins with a trip to the foot of the Blue Mountains on a Saturday 5:30. It is the Penrith Panthers hosting the Manly-Warringah Seagulls out there at Bluebet Stadium. 1 week later, they are back at Four Pines Park for the first time in over a month. So round 3, they play the Parramatta Eels at Four Pines Park. The next Four Pines Park matchup is taking place on a Friday night in round number 7 against the Melbourne Storm. 1 week later, they hit the road again, but just down the road to Campbelltown Sports Stadium for a Sunday afternoon clash against the West Tigers. In round number 9, they are back at Four Pines Park. They host the Gold Coast Titans, and then they travel to Queensland for the first time in 2023 for the annual traditional Magic Round fixture between themselves and the Brisbane Broncos, and Manly have been allocated as the home side for this. So looking at Section 2 in a nutshell, they have two games at Four Pines Park. One of them is a home game up at Suncorp Stadium, and their two away trips are to Penrith and to Campbelltown. The strength of opposition, you've got Penrith and Melbourne back-to-back weeks. You're taking on the Brisbane Broncos up at Magic Round And the Gold Coast Titans traditionally, I know they didn't win there last year, but they tend to give quite a fair bit of curry to Manly, quite a lot of curry. So that's definitely a harder period for the club by comparison to their first part, their first section of the year. Part three of 2023 starts back in familiar surroundings. So it's technically 3 home games in a row for the Manly Seagulls, with one of them being at Suncorp Stadium on a Friday night. Their next home game is against the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks, arguably their greatest rival, and that's taking place Sunday afternoon, Channel 9 game. So that's a long layoff too. They play on the Friday night, and their next game 1 week later is being played on the Sunday. So that's a long, nice turnaround for the boys, considering that they give up 2 home games inside the first 10 rounds to Mudgee and then up to Suncorp Stadium. Then they hit the road again in rounds 11 and in rounds 12 and 13. In round number 12, they have a Sunday afternoon game against the Canberra Raiders at GIO Stadium, and then they take on the Newcastle Knights 1 week later on the exact same day for a Channel 9 Sunday afternoon game. So that's about 3 or 4 Channel 9 Sunday games for the Manly Seagulls, which is nice considering where they finished up on the ladder, with all due respect, in 2022. And then we shift over into round number 14. They have their bye. Now, the week before against the Newcastle Knights, I believe that is the State of Origin affected round. So the likes of Turbo, DCE, Jake Travojevic would not be partaking in that match against the Newcastle Knights in the Hunter Valley. Round 14, they have their second bye of 3 in 2023, and to finish off their third section for the year, they are back at 4 Pines Park for the first time in 3 or so weeks, and they host the Redcliffe Dolphins. The first ever Seagulls versus Dolphins matchup is happening at 4 Pines Park, and that game is happening on a Friday night, a Channel 9 Friday night game. So Dolphins traveling into the depths of Sydney on that night. To just summarize section number 3, they've got the Sharks, Raiders, Knights, a bye, and the Dolphins. The Sharks and Raiders are going to be tricky, but they host the Sharks, and they do have a commanding record over them. No matter what happened to them last year, Manly still have, in my opinion, quite the hoodoo, quite the curse over Cronulla, despite what happened last season. A trip down to Canberra. Manly actually don't fear Canberra. They actually have a decent record in Canberra, in particularly over the past decade or so. And then they take on Newcastle and Redcliffe. That may not be too bad. Yes, State of Origin affected game against Newcastle, but therefore Knights will be Origin affected as well. So there can be a couple of wins that they can snag inside that section. I'm pretty confident in saying that. Section 4 of their 2023 season begins in round number 16 on a Saturday, 5:30 p.m. They're out at Combank Stadium for a game against one of their older rivals, the Parramatta Eels. Then they are back on the road again. So this is back-to-back road games for the Manly Sea Eagles. Once again, it seems like they're going home, home, away, away, home, home, away, away in 2023 by and large. They are then traveling down to take on the Melbourne Storm on a Saturday night, and this is the time of year where Origin players and the fatigue of all the boys that may not be representing in State of Origin, that this is when the fatigue starts to dial it up a notch big time. So then we shift over into round number 18, and they host the Sydney Roosters at 4 Pines Park on a Sunday afternoon out there at 4 Pines Park. Round 19, they have their final bye for 2023. Then they're back at 4 Pines Park and they host the North Queensland Cowboys a Saturday, 5:30 p.m. That I will be heavily looking forward to big time, considering how good their previous encounter was. So that period there, one of those games is going to be Origin affected. Looking at the strength of opposition, they are away to Parramatta, away to the Melbourne Storm. They host the Sydney Roosters, and they host the Cowboys. They have a bye in there, but damn, that is a tough stretch. And I mean, you do, if you're a Manly supporter, you do look at that Cowboys fixture and go, well, we got to do that because those other games are going to be mighty, mighty difficult. But yeah, I think that actually may be so far the toughest period of their season right there. What does Manly-Warringah Sea Eagles' run to the finals look like in 2023? Well, she starts in round 21, Sunday afternoon football out at PointsBet Stadium. The Cronulla Sharks hosting the Manly-Warringah Sea Eagles, and that is the first of 3 straight away games. Now, they've just had a couple of home games in a row there, but this is to start their run to the finals. They have 3 straight away games. Game number 1 is against the Sharks against on a Saturday night. Their next contest is round 22 at Wynn Stadium against the St. George Illawarra Dragons, Saturday, 5:30. You want to talk about commanding records? St. George Illawarra Dragons have won big time on the Manly-Warringah Sea Eagles. And to round out that three-peat away series for the Manly-Warringah Sea Eagles, they play at the Sydney Cricket Ground, a place that doesn't hold a lot of good fortune for him, unfortunately. It's very rare. It's a very, very rare visit for him, but their past couple of trips to the SCG have not been fruitful for Manly-Warringah Sea Eagles fans. And that game is happening on a Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. kickoff, or sorry, 7:50 p.m. kickoff. Finally, after 3 weeks being on the road, they're back in front of their home fans on a Thursday night, so 1 full week, but they're hosting the Penrith Panthers. So they take on the Penrith Panthers twice in 2023. And I think both of those occasions, the Panthers should be at full strength, pending on injuries and suspensions and the like. So that's a tough gig for the Manly Sea Eagles. And obviously, the Roosters in there twice, but I'll summarize all that in a second. They hit the road again and they travel over the ditch this time to Mount Smart Stadium Friday, 6 p.m. against the New Zealand Warriors. They come back home, but it's back on country, but they don't play at Four Pines Park. They are away to the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs at Accor Stadium in round number 26. So once again, it's home, home, away, away, home, home, away, away, or maybe even 3 of those in a row for the Manly Sea Eagles in 2023. And then finally, the final game of the home and away regular season for the boys is at Four Pines Park. It's a Friday 6 p.m. game against the Wests Tigers. So to summarize everything in there, their run to the finals starts in round 21, and they are away to the Sharks, Dragons, and Roosters 3 weeks in a row. They host the Panthers. They're away to New Zealand, away to the Bulldogs, and home to the West Tigers. Half of those sides, there are winnable games in there, but there is a stretch, or there are back-to-back games where they take on the Roosters and the Panthers. That's a tough fortnight for him. And then I think it's 1 week after taking on the Panthers, they've then got to hop on the plane and travel over the ditch. And even though Seagulls have a really good record against the Warriors, it's still that end of season trip to New Zealand, and it's a longer fixture. I don't think Seagulls have travelled, correct me if I'm wrong, travelled to New Zealand in 3 years now or so, obviously due to the pandemic that went down. But their run to the finals isn't too bad. I think they can nab 4 wins at least. And I think that's what every Manly Sea Eagles fan would be hoping for. So all in all, they have the one trip to Queensland, they have the one trip to New Zealand, and yeah, they have a trip to Mudgee. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of traveling for them. But again, I've said it a few times now, they are home, 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 away, 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 quite a fair bit. So um, a lot of, while it's not a lot of traveling by kilometers, there does seem to be a lot of, we're going to hop on the bus and then go down there, we're going to hop on the bus and come back, and so on and so forth. So it's not too bad of a draw. They do take on Panthers twice, the Roosters twice, the Storm twice, only South Sydney just the one time, and the Cowboys the once as well. Obviously the Sharks 2 times as well. So I think that's just under halfway. I think or just on the halfway point for me personally. I think Manly Seagulls have a decent fixture. The strength of opposition is a bit of a prick for him, but there's not a whole lot of travelling for him, which is a good thing. So I've got the mid range, maybe even just slightly on the slightly easier side of things. Almost there, guys. With this series being finished and the NRL kicking off, and this is being recorded on the day of the Indigenous Maori All Stars team list being announced as well. So that's going to be something interesting to get me teeth stuck into shortly. Thank you very much, guys, for the continuous support. It really means a lot, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you.